many fields and sounds definitely in many cases makes the difference. And so, yeah, there are lots of jobs out there.
Well, sound design and music technology education seems to be a growing field. But now I think you're right. So in the past, really there was only one sort of technical role in music production, the recording engineer. The musicians come in, one person records them. Now there's a whole team behind it. And similarly, if you look at movie sound design, in the early days, very small number of people. Now it can be dozens and dozens of people involved in film sound design. So the real factor is not that there won't be jobs, but rather the jobs are changing, and they're changing more and more rapidly. So an important moment in the history of the Industrial Revolution, similar things happened all over, but in the UK there was the Luddite movement. And so this was in the 1800s in the textile industry, making clothes and fabrics. New machines came in, and the people who were employed in the industry, they were hostile and resistant, and they smashed up the machines and they tore up the railways, and it's always seen as an expression against industrialization. But that's not exactly what it was. The workers who smashed up the machinery at the time were not against industrialization. They were upset because they weren't being trained on the new machines. They were just being replaced. There were still jobs to be had, they just weren't getting those jobs. And so the real factor is, it's not will there be jobs or what will they be, but that people need to continually learn, re-educate themselves to a very rapidly changing marketplace. And that's going to continue to happen.
One of the things you mentioned indeed was designing the sound for cars. I've done a tiny bit, again, you've done a lot more recently, but obviously designing sound for cars is not something that I ever expected to do when I started off, especially working in theatre. And another thing, for example, we've started using electronic sound systems to change the acoustics of restaurants. We've been doing it in venues and other theatres for a long time, but just in restaurants. And these are systems that help improve the coherency of individual conversations of people at tables. They help mask other sounds around you, and they can really help change the acoustic effect in the entire venue. So there is a wider range of things that a lot of us now get asked to do.
Related to profession, I would also think that art will play, in general art, or the way that we express ourselves or identify ourselves will be also an important thing in the future, because I think that society will also change in the future. You could imagine that in the future that everyone get an income, basic income, and that actually we identify ourselves through our work. And I think that if everyone will get a basic income, then we need to have a new identification about ourselves. And I think that, yes, and also, so I think art will be a new thing in general, which makes it more important, and to express ourselves in new ways. And also I think, yeah, we need to know about the algorithm, the things, and that we can handle it, of course. And yeah, I don't know, actually, I cannot say which new jobs will exist or which things will happen. Let's see, I'm looking forward, but and we need to decide where we will go. Yes.
Okay. One thing I want just to add to that is that the design in sound design doesn't come from just using technology. It's not about using technology, it's about how you use the technology. It's how you use that technology differently to somebody else, and that's what makes it creative and interesting. That's where the design comes from.
Что ж, я понимаю, что мы находимся на пороге некой культурной и технологической революции, в результате которого и компьютеры будут писать музыку, сохранится культура человеческого искусства, и оно будет ценно по-прежнему, у нас откроются новые профессии. В общем-то, поживем увидим. А у нас осталось некоторое количество времени для вопросов-ответов. Может быть, в аудитории накопились они. Мы готовы сейчас слышать. Давайте поблагодарим наших спикеров.
Я по образованию звукорежиссер. Вот интересно то, что вот рассказывали про звуки будущего, как вот выстраивать алгоритмы. И рассказывали о будущем, как будет выглядеть будущее саунд-дизайнера и развитие вот такого вот специфического жанра, как вот то, что всю музыку будем писать вместе с искусственным интеллектом. А вот интересно задать вопрос, может ли возникнуть такое, скажем так, из разряда возможного будущего, что, например, с возможности саунд-дизайнера, вот именно работы саунд-дизайнера будут настолько расширены, что вот обычному человеку надоест, и он вернется к старому звучанию. То есть, естественно, когда вот не записывать через компьютер, а все именно естественный звук, что натурально, то есть именно не костер сгенерированный, а чтобы прямо записали его с настоящего костра, что вот хочу вот именно как раньше, то есть как вот тогда вот раньше вот писали, вот все такое вот именно такое возможное будущее может быть?
Может, есть один вопрос небольшой. Кто-нибудь ходил в театр? Недавно, за последний год. Не звуки. Окей. Кто-нибудь слушает виниловую пластинку, такая похожа на круг, но блин. Окей. Хорошо. Так, кто-то ответит?
Well, I take it, I definitely like the idea, and I'm doing this quite often. Usually I always have a sound recorder, a portable recorder with me to record almost every sound I find interesting. So I have a huge collection of different sounds, and I think this is an important aspect, not to lose the context to the real world, but not as totally opposite to digital and virtual, but just this is an addition to what we are doing. But I definitely like this idea.
I think you get different levels of involvement in terms of computer. I mean, sometimes computer-generated stuff, and it used to be the case with computer-generated graphics, that they were only used for the lower budget shows, films, whatever. And always the better stuff was always done on a more personal basis. And the same's always been the same with sound. I think it's still happening with sound as well. That you can go to a website and you can create a soundscape from that, and you can use that in a production. But actually, if you do it yourself, you go out and record it still at the moment, or do whatever you need to do yourself as opposed to using a computer for that part of the process, you're going to end up with a better result. Obviously, I don't know where it's going to win. These days, we know a little bit more. Maybe they're working on it closer than I am. But obviously, it's going to get more involved and more important. But where it ends, I'm not quite sure.
Можно сравнить с написанием текста на бумаге. Мы же еще используем бумагу для написания, хотя печатаем, возможно, на компьютере быстрее. Но это так приятно царапать карандашом бумагу, правда?
А можно реплику? Я просто на самом деле мой зять пишет в Америке. Он пишет именно компьютерную музыку. И получается, что чаще всего оркестранты, настоящие оркестранты где-то я говорю о том, что у меня зять в Америке пишет компьютерную музыку. И чаще всего получается, что он выступает как продюсер и композитор и так далее, Грег Коннор. Так вот, у него так получается, что часто гитаристы или даже оркестранты, они записывают реальную музыку, а потом ему на компьютере приходится все это исправлять. И то, что он делает, это гораздо чище звучит, чем вся вот эта реально записанная музыка. То есть здесь, я говорю, конечно, искусства огромное количество. И я уверена, что никуда не денется именно искусство, и компьютер, это сочетание. Компьютер это просто средство, которое позволяет либо написать что-то, естественно, это и реальная музыка состоится, и музыка, компьютер, который позволяет что-то чище делать, лучше и так далее. То есть здесь объем творчества, он не ограничен. Спасибо. Но это просто реплика.
Well, I mean, just in terms of that, one of the biggest advances that I've been using in what I do is some software called Isotope, which is good for audio repair effectively. And you can really, I'm pulling out certain sounds from a recording. And so the ability to do all of that is an amazing thing. It's arguable as to whether it's creative. But when I do that, I think I'm absolutely doing some engineering. It's doing something that I need to do. I mean, there are creative purposes and uses for that, but really, those kind of software is all about engineering. So, follow up just with your question earlier. Also, this is another strange thing that I've noticed in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in Germany or over here. That an awful lot of albums now being produced and launched over the last 12 months are now being reissued in cassette tapes as well. So that's a slightly strange thing that's occurring, and I have absolutely no explanation as to why that's happening. But I don't know if it's trying to go back to something more sentimental.
Well, I think we are facing these things that the analog media definitely are coming back in music. We have vinyl, we have cassettes back again. Vinyl is rising during the last few years and so on. I think this is interesting. At least in Vienna, in Austria, I also can observe that we had a very vibrant scene of digital musicians during the 1990s and early 2000s. And all these colleagues started during the last years to integrate analog instruments and approaches into their work. And not in the sense that they're doing different things, but in the sense it's just you thought we will have both of all these words. And I think this is a big choice and a great chance for the sound of the future.
Okay. I think also so related to the trends, or also related to what Hannes said, related in electronic music, when we see the trend that modular synthesizers came up again, and how much new and the thing about the moment, that we capture the moment and cannot record it or manipulate it again later on, not in detail, but to capture that moment and keep it as it is. Yes, that is also quite important, I think, when we saw it. And also this direct access, that we have direct access to all the knobs from modular synthesizers. For example, in the 80s, everything gets hidden through layers and layers and layers, and now the trends come back that we get access to all of the knobs, all of the manipulators, and that's also something like this haptic thing, which came back, and also related to your thing about to your sentence, what you said about the artist in the end, how to make the correction and how to make it correct that the perceiving is for everyone is well. Yes. Okay. But that's fine.
И даже голливудские композиторы и саунд-дизайнеры используют микс между живым симфоническим оркестром и электронным оркестром. Но электронный оркестр дает слишком чистый звук, и поэтому необходимо немножко живого, или немножко живого исполнения. То же самое возникает и в синтезе. Я думаю, уже на прекрасное время.
There is question.
Last question? Right?
Я хочу сначала поблагодарить спикеров, это было действительно очень интересно и познавательно. У меня вот такой вопрос про искусственный интеллект. Насколько вообще они внедрились сейчас, насколько они действенны в музыке, в музыкальных программах? Я вот недавно, год назад купила программу «Изотоп Неутрон», и вот они обещают, что якобы ты поставишь на мастер шину программу, и она автоматически тебе сделает мастеринг. Вот искусственный интеллект сделает этот мастеринг. Но я вижу, что он делает гораздо хуже, чем я сама сделаю это. гораздо хуже. То есть что это? Это искусственный интеллект или действительно, вот как вы сказали, это что-то усредненное, какие-то алгоритмы? Спасибо.
I think it's for Josh, yeah, and this is the last question we have around 2 minutes.
Might be a bad thing, but I guess I should comment on that. So, I'm well aware of the few programs that do automatic mastering. On the one hand, you have Isotope Ozone software that does it, and they use AI to identify the type of music, the genre, and to identify the musical instruments. Maybe a bit more now, but then it applies a preset. It applies a single setting for that type of content. So that can conceivably make it worse. It's certainly very limited in what it can do based on that knowledge. And the AI approach it uses is fairly minimal. A few years back, myself and the researchers working with me developed an AI system for mixing. That became the company Lander, who realized that it was much easier to bring to market a product for mastering. But they're not doing it very intelligent things with their mastering, and they're actually exploiting the fact that a lot of people will pay for something that sounds different rather than sounds better. So their technology has improved over time, but you're right, it can be criticized. And I don't think that the flaw is in the use of it, or is in the concept of AI, rather the way in which the artificial intelligence is used can be made a lot better and can be improved a lot. And there's this gap between what it takes to launch a successful business and what it takes to deliver a high-quality technical innovation. And unfortunately, they don't always meet. But the potential to make it all better is still there.
Спасибо, Джош. В любом случае, так или иначе, профессия саунд-дизайнера только развивается, и это одно из самых перспективных направлений. Спасибо.
Можно еще один вопрос?
Разрешите еще вопрос?
Если у нас еще остался?
How will we change musical education in the future? What do you think?
Just a small question.
Well, if I get the question right, how do we change musical education? I think it's on the one hand very important that young people should just experiment with sound at a very, very early age. If young children start to paint, then the parents said, you do it is very, very good. If the young children start to make sounds, banging on the cans on the kitchen, then the parents usually are really afraid with them. We should support children making noises, making sounds, experiment with sounds. On the other hand, I think it's second point is it's important to interact with our past, with all the music which is already there. And the third point, of course, we have to deal with all the technology which is there. We have to use this, we have to integrate this in our lectures in several kinds. I think the computer and all this digital technology is not only important for those people who are studying audio or sound design and all these other things, but also for musicologists, for classical music players as well. They definitely have to know today how to use the computer for doing their recordings, how the computer is helping them within their rehearsals and performance. If they don't have this knowledge, they definitely are not competitive as a professional musician. So it must be a mixture of all these things.
I talked also in the last months with music teachers, and they said also these new possibilities of technology and software which exist, so give us access to create music for everyone in the end, yes. And also the computer will be hidden, so we don't see the computer anyway. We saw something like the push or machine or different commercial products, but there are a lot of them. But it means that we can handle, get access to the computer and can express ourselves and get the style from the street and can do it by ourselves, and so we can so people which we don't get with a classical instrument get access to music with new tool set, and that gives it's really an important way, and also to get access to people or everyone can relate to music. Yes. And then, actually, I think it's it should be it's related to the music teachers. Yes, that they need to get into it too and accept it. Yes, sometimes.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, время, отведенное на дискуссию, подошло к концу. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the time for discussion is finished.